Okay, we are recording. Jack, how are you today?
Not so bad. I just went out to get some food and got absolutely drenched on the way there and back. And now the sun's shining, so perfectly timed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got to leave here and go into London this evening, and knowing you think my hair's going to get soaked walking through
Yeah,
London tonight. I mean, you've got a very good head of hair that looks wet, like looks good wet as well. Whereas
it's
me,
wet. Yeah.
like what I've got just about holding on to on the top of my head, it don't look good once it's rain soaked. So let's hope
I
that
mean, I,
sunshine
I got a
stays on.
I got a bit of alopecia on the side, so I was making sure to cover that up as well. So as soon as that get wet, so I look well, I look a bit mental. So
Okay, well, let's kick off your playlist, and I'm going to ask you first to tell me the song that you regard as having the greatest ever intro, please, Jack.
uh, it's a difficult one for me because I mean, I seem to I don't know. My love for songs kind of changes by the week, but this is kind of one that stuck with me for a while. It's 3 Mile Ditch by the Witches. It's just a proper spooky, doomy, very long intro as well, but kind of sets the tone for the album. And I think, yeah, it's one of my favorites. It's my go-to kind of soundcheck song. If I'm in a, don't know, if it's been one of those days where it's been a bit of a shit drive to a gig, a bit of tough day mid-tour kind of thing, or you have those songs that you need when you're in a bit of a bad mood. I think this is one of them. I think to kind of
How do you deal with a bad mood? And essentially, like if you wake up and you're having a blue day, are you somebody that reaches for you know essential hits of steps just to kind of lift you with some absolute uh, ridiculous pop, or are you like, right, Leonard Cohen, Nick Cave, I'm going in. I'm gonna really enjoy hugging this feeling, and I'm gonna ride it out and immerse myself in it.
I wallow in it. I love it. I just the
Same, mate.
darkest, most aggressive stuff ever. Yeah, and then I kind of get it kind of gets me over it. To be fair, like I think listening to your poppier kind of stuff or your chirpy, like I wouldn't listen to Fort George Formby. I think it'd make me more irritated than anything. So,
Yeah,
yeah, straight for the dark stuff.
absolutely. That's why people like Nick Drake were invented. It was to just get you
Exactly.
through them times, mate.
Yeah.
Um, okay, I mean, in regards to intros, um, we're heading into 2025, and the musical landscape's very very different to maybe what it was 10 or 20 years ago. In regards to attention spans of younger audiences now, I don't think it's a unfair thing to say that maybe they're getting a little shorter. And we're seeing TikTok and Spotify, Spotify's awash with hundreds and hundreds of new songs each day by, thousands of artists. And I think in a time where them attention spans are getting so short, it does that put pressure on artists to really kind of grab them with that intro and try and hook them? Or do you think, I'm going to ask you, directly like how you approach it, but do you think that's a compromise of your art to do that, or do you think it's just the one of the challenges in the moving landscape of how people consume music now?
It's definitely a bit of a balancing act. I mean, there's the stat, isn't there, that like song length has gone down by 30 seconds since the 60s, or like by an amount of time because of attention span and all that kind of stuff. But I think for us, especially, or for when I'm writing, I just kind of it's definitely a consideration, but I wouldn't let it like the last track on our album, Brittany, for example, was like 8 minutes long. Um, it wouldn't work if it was 3 minutes long.
Yeah,
Like it wouldn't be the same track. And I think I don't know. I'm a bit of a I'm quite stubborn just in general. And I think I don't know. I like to think that you can kind of convince people the other way and kind of force people to listen to longer stuff. And saying that with intros, I think there's the old saying, "Don't bore us, get to the chorus," which I think is very true. You know, at least with the first two tracks on our album, like the first track initially was an intro to the second single, Taxi Man, and we made that a separate track because it's like fucking 2 minutes long, and you think by the time the listeners got through that, they probably would have skipped to the next track if it was just the part of the same track. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely something that's considered. I remember one of the first songs I wrote actually had this really long kind of um, I don't know, this atmospheric shoegazy kind of drony intro. But I remember showing it to a few people, and they were like, "Yeah, the song's good once it gets there, the intro kind of ruins it almost." So
But
yeah.
do you think, I mean, that's playing that to friends,
Mm.
but do you think that's an even harder conversation to have with a record label?
I don't know, I think the labels we've been with have been very. We're not nowhere near one of those bands that's the kind of band that would have a label telling us how to write songs and that. I mean, so I can't really speak from that perspective, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like we've kind of been able to do our art, and the labels liked it, and they put us out. I think if a label doesn't like it, which we've definitely had when we were searching for labels for this second album, if they weren't into it, they just wouldn't put it out,
Yeah.
basically. So, but no, I definitely understand. I think it goes beyond labels when it comes to choice of singles and what works with radio play. Like I know we've with the first album and with this album, two of the singles were Taxi Man off this album and Kate Moss off the last album. Is it Kate Moss? No, it was The Warden off the last album, sorry. Um, there's the suggestion from that pluggers and management and PR to trim the songs into radio edits because I mean the Warden off the first album was like 2 minutes 50 long, but it had this big kind of Black Country New Road esque Cocteau Twins outro kind of thing where it just kind of dragged and it was like the release of tension at the end of the song and kind of the sun from the clouds kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and we protested and protested and protested that we didn't want to chop that off and because it ruins the entire song.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't happen. And it was the same with Taxi Man. Like the radio, it's not been released, but the version that gets played on the radio's probably 30 seconds to a minute shorter than the actual track. And
Yeah.
you missed the second verse and the Brit like, and I don't know. Personally, it really pissed me off, you know.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and it did with Cal as well. But we still understand why. But again, it's kind of that stubbornness. I'd rather die on the hill of our song or our art being how we intended it to be than change it because it might get more radio play.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
but it's gone on to get loads of radio play. So it's one of those. It's the problem I think a lot of artists have got now, especially we find. We're big fans of bands like Fugazi and like my background's kind of in punk bands like the Dead Kennedys and the Damned and all that kind of stuff. Very kind of I guess political bands and like principled bands. Like Fugazi would never do like a show for more than a tenner kind of thing in the 90s and turned down massive label things and still made, probably still made a living off their band.
There was
Like we
no
couldn't
no fucking compromise with Fugazi, man.
no, but like nowadays you couldn't do that. Like I'd love
Yeah.
to be that band. I could all of their principles kind of sit with me personally and would just love to be one of those bands. But it was like the Dead Kennedys and the Levi's advert, where um Levi's wanted to use Holiday in Cambodia for an advert, like an advertising campaign, and Jello Biafra was like, "No, the song's about genocide. The
Yeah.
genocide
Yeah.
in Cambodia. Um, but yeah, like we couldn't do that. Like I'm sure if Google or Apple we got an offer for an advert with one of those two, we'd probably have to take it because we need to pay rent because we don't make any money off our music.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
which is shite to be honest.
Yeah.
It's kind of yeah.
I'm going to ask you for your second track. If you can tell me now, Jack, first song you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, please.
There's Veloria by the Pixies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where and when and how? Tell me.
I don't know. I think it was. I used to be in a covers band with my dad and a couple of other people, and my dad was a drummer, I was a guitarist, and we had a friend of his and his friend that were the singer and the bassist, and when we were deciding covers, I kind of all of my music tastes were just based off my dad's really. Like it was, I hadn't really found my own stuff, and they showed me Pixies, like they showed me Doolittle and Surfer Rosa, and they kind of opened my mind into how a band, how to play in a band because I used to play to CDs at home all the time, and how to write. I mean, the perfect guitar-y, I would say pop but catchier songs. And I think I got into Bossa Nova that album myself, and it's the second track off there, isn't it? I think. And I think I was probably walking to college in the pissing rain or the freezing cold, and that came on, and I didn't, it was just don't know. It's just the music in it, and the I'm not very good at like you know putting emotions into words, but it's just a beautiful song. I think it's a song of it's a big love song, but it's one of longing and you know like emotional lust as well, without sounding too pretentious.
No, not at all. It's really weird. I always ask guests to tell me, if they had to pinpoint what that emotion was, and the amount of people, we're fast approaching 600 episodes of this show, and the amount of people that use the word longing is very common, and I think it sort of describes loosely an emotion, but I get where these people are coming from,
Mhm.
and yeah, and I think like the Pixies as a band, and just just rewrote the rule book as well. And I think I'm 51, so I'm imagining growing up on the Pixies, I'm probably not a lot dissimilar from your dad's generation of music,
Yeah.
and hearing the Pixies, it was just like, oh, okay. And I'll be honest, I think I got in the Pixies properly after kind of Nirvana dropped in '91 because they were being referenced, and I was like, oh yeah, I've heard a few of their tracks. I want to go back, and it was like, yeah, it was just ridiculous, and I think Bossa Nova was probably the album I went to least. And do
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? I think like
I
Surfer
get what I
Rosa
get
and
what yeah, I kind of get why those last two kind of get missed. There are some, I mean, there's some great songs in Trompe Le Monde as well, but
yeah,
I think finding the first two, like you said, they're seminal rewriting the rule book albums, aren't they? That you kind of
absolutely, absolutely. Have you seen them?
yeah, saw them twice in 2010, both at the 2010 and 2014 when they released the fifth album.
Yeah.
It was at the Manchester Apollo. Went with me, my dad, and the two other guys we were in the
Oh,
band with,
wonderful.
and it was like a pilgrimage almost. 'Cause, like,
Yeah,
we used to cover Monkey Gone to Heaven, Holiday Song, and all these. We wanted to be a covers band that wasn't just playing fucking like Mustang Sally and
yeah,
Highway to Hell. So yeah, it was fantastic. Like 39 songs, front to back, no encore. Didn't say a word in between any of the songs. It was just
yeah.
yeah. I remember watching it, being like, I'd want to be in that band. I want to do something like that.
Absolutely,
The
absolutely.
music says it all almost. There's
Oh
no
yeah,
need to say
totally,
anything in between. It just helps.
totally.
Yeah.
And I had him on the show about 6 months ago, and it's really weird because I sort of was telling them a story. My brother runs a venue in Australia, and like a small venue and a sort of bar, and the Pixies were in town, and uh, and and Frank Black walked in to my brother's bar, and uh, and my brother was obviously like, oh, "Fuck, that's fucking Frank Black, man. He's in my fucking restaurant," and he just come and sat at the bar, and my brother was just making small talk with him. And he said, what are you doing here? And he said, oh, like, I'm just here, just, do a little bit of music and stuff like that. And then my brother was like, look, mate, you're Frank Black. And he was just like, oh, you know my band? And he was like, it's the fucking Pixies, mate. And he was just like, so anyway, he, just if you ever want to love Frank Black anymore, this story, I'll love to recount it. He finished his meal, and my brother's like, please let me get you dinner. Like, let me
Mm,
like pay for that because you've given me so much joy, with your
yeah.
music and stuff. And he was like, no, 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 let me pay. He was like, no, seriously, like, let me just do this one thing. And he was like, okay. And the girl that had been serving him, as he left the venue, he signed a few bits, and I thought it was my brother and stuff. And as he left the venue, he called the girl over and he gave her
Yeah.
$100 and just went, "Thanks for
Wow.
serving." And I just thought, oh, what a fucking good guy, man.
That's nice. Because you always hear stories about them like hating each other and being assholes to each other, don't you? Yeah, that's it's nice to know they're not like that to other people, just
Absolutely,
themselves.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about growing up. I mean, it's a silly question, but I always like to ask guests if, like, your home and upbringing was a musical environment, but you've kind of sort of, sort of led into that already. So tell us a little bit about growing
Yeah,
up and what sort of stuff
I
was on at
mean,
home.
as long as I can remember, like, and I've kind of got the home videos to back it up. I've been either playing guitar on one of those from like 3 years old on. Then I say playing, loosely playing guitar on like the shitty plastic ones you used to get from Argos, or the same with the drum kit as well. Like, I remember, still remember being sat with a drum kit playing along to the Fun Loving Criminals, like a recorded VHS, and then doing Glastonbury in like '99 or something like that, and Supergrass as well, and REM. And I mean, my mum and dad weren't necessarily like, my dad played in a kind of like a TSOL kind of punk band in the 80s. And they played with I think they went on tour with the Vibrators. That's kind of how
All
as big
right.
as they got, like years ago. Played like Bradford and Winchester and Swansea. Like nothing too big, but did well. But growing up until I was 15, 16, when we started that covers band, then like he didn't really play, but like just consume music all the time. And I mean, I started playing guitar at 4 years old. Um, so like my whole life has just been, like, my whole childhood was either football or guitar. Like
Yeah.
that was kind of that was it. So yeah, I mean, my man used to get like the Enemy when it was still paper. Used to get that on the regular, like every week, and we kind of just he'd go through and see certain albums, be like, "Oh, we'll go and buy that. We'll go and buy this." It's kind of like I always think of it as kind of even though I was only like between 8 and 13, 14 years old, I feel like my kind of heyday with music were like bands like the Claxons being big, like Supergrass was still kind of going, and like the Libertines, um, just like the Automatic, or that kind of weird new rave thing that happened around 2008, 2010.
Yeah.
That was the first, I guess, call it a movement or like scene that I got into from getting these CDs from the Enemy, just like stuck to the front of the Enemy and
Mm.
listened to them in my room and learning how to play them pretty much.
It's so
Yeah,
interesting, sort of, the I mean, new rave, I believe that the
yeah,
press
new
coined it,
rave.
didn't they?
Yeah,
And they were just thrusting it upon you, and it was that, like, they've done it so many times. Like both the Enemy and the Maker just created these scenes and pushed and pushed and pushed for it to. And I think, like, as soon as you force a scene, the backlash kicks in, and I think unfortunately bands like the Automatic and Klaxons and such, like, I think because they got sort of thrown into that, I think if anything, kind of maybe sort of shortened their careers a little bit, because I think it made them a fashionable band, not a stylish band. And I think fashion
yeah,
comes and goes.
yeah. I remember seeing Claxons doing a mashup of Golden Scans with an umbrella with Rihanna at the Brit Awards, and
Fucking
that
amazing
was
that
like,
was.
yeah, it was great. I remember that it was yeah, fantastic. But yeah, it's kind of like, I mean, I wasn't there, but like you look back at the punk thing, and it only really like that only lasted 2 to 3 years, didn't it? Because for the same reasons, like it became fashionable, not trendy, or yeah,
Yeah. And then
yeah,
all of a sudden it become all about mohawks, and it was like, no, 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 it's done now. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. And I think, them scenes, they do burn bright, but they do burn out pretty quickly as well. And
it's
but
live fast, die young, isn't it? So,
absolutely, absolutely. Um, okay, so I'm going to ask you now. I'm going to stay in your formative years for track three, Jack, and I'm going to ask you to tell me, please, the song that reminds you of your time at school.
uh, can I do two? Can I do one for primary school and one for high school?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because I got so yeah. Primary school it'd be The Fun Loving Criminal by Fun Loving Criminals. Sorry, 1 second. My girlfriend's trying to ring me. We're back. Yeah, Fun Loving Criminal by Fun Loving Criminals. that was just a staple in the car all the time. And from the age of, I don't know, well, 4, playing along to trying to play the drums on a little shitty plastic kit, to then at Glastonbury in '99 to all the way through to, yeah. They were like a bit of a personal story, but um, my mum wasn't very well. She passed away eventually, but she wasn't very well during like the late '90s, and her and my dad were like big fans and wanted to go and see them play. So my dad kind of emailed or did a fucking fax, whatever it was then. The back like the their management was like, oh, look, my wife's got cancer. Any chance we can get like, in front of the barrier or like a concession kind of ticket thing? He's always had like the gift of the gab, you know. He's yeah, guitar shit to a farmer kind of person, and everyone loves him. Like he's not a Dow boy. But yeah, so anyway, they email back. They're like, yeah, that's fine. Next thing you know, they're on like they time to get there a few hours early. They're like in the tour bus with the band. They're all backstage. We've got AAA passes, and ever since they've been family friends. Like my first gig, I think was I say gig was they played a fucking like some weird leisure centre in Aston, just around Birmingham, and I just went there for the sound check and got to play on the drums for a bit. Like they did a couple of songs. I was there, like I would announce with my dad at it. I go stand at the back for the loud ones and at the front for the quieter ones. Like I'll never forget it. But they've just been, as a band, been fantastic to like us as a family
It's a
ever
real
since. So
shame what's
that's,
happened with them. Like,
yeah, it
as
is. It's
far
that,
as
yeah, this label thing and the whole lawsuit kind of just completely fucked them
yeah,
over.
it's I've been like, I run clubs and I've done lots of stuff with Huey over the years and lots of stuff with Fast as well. And and yeah, I was really surprised when that all started to happen. And fun
Yeah,
loving. I mean, I'm
especially
not.
recently as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really. Fast has been nothing but lovely. But do people want to see the fun loving criminals without Huey? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think maybe it's them too, isn't it? If it's without Fast or without Huey, it's not the fundamental criminals, you'd say.
Yeah, yeah, it's a
You
real
know,
shame.
yeah,
But yeah,
huge
I
huge influence as well. Like, probably because I've just had it on ever since the 1997 when the first time we came out. They've always been just a huge influence.
yeah,
Yeah, Fast is just like the loveliest dude ever.
yeah,
Like, he's just great. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
So high school,
High school probably Golden Scans by Klaxons. That was the first, yeah, like the first band I got into. It's the single. There are other songs off that album that I'd probably prefer, like Magic or um the track after Golden Scans. I can't remember what it was called, but yeah, that was like a bit of a kind of precursor to the Pictures Awakening for me musically, where there's all these sounds in like everything I listened to before was like Queens of the Stone Age and System of a Down, and you know that it's like double track guitars, drums, bass, and vocals, whereas this just had so much stuff going on,
mm,
and it's kind of when synths started being used in a cool way with guitar bands. It wasn't like
yeah,
the fucking Yes proggy thing from the '70s. It was, it was obvious, but not like a gimmick. I think I
yeah.
just
And I
loved
think
it.
of all the sort of bands that were doing that at that time, it was so much stuff coming over as well on at that time from like the French labels, that was crossing over, sort of, I guess, more electronic music with guitar music. But I think even looking at bands like Later the Pier and stuff like that, they just didn't have the pop sensibilities that the Klaxons had. I think the Klaxons just knew what made a
Mm.
really good pop record as well, them hooks and them choruses. And I think like that's why they were, essentially top of the tree in that sort of scene and the crop of bands that come with it.
Yeah, I think the one band that seemed to survive that new rave thing was Crystal Castles until obviously he turned out to be an arsehole.
Yeah, that
Um,
went a little bit dark, that didn't it?
yeah, that wasn't very sure, but yeah,
Hmm.
they were, yeah. I remember seeing them a few times, and they were, yeah, crazy gigs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Was school something that you enjoyed?
Uh, let's, let's say 60% no, 40% yes. Like, it was. It was fine. I was kind of the only person that was one of the few people that was into like punk music when I went through a huge punk phase of wanting to like wear Doc Martens and tartan bondage trousers and all that kind of shit. Like I used to get the piss taken out of me for having long hair. Not so much in school, but outside of it. And I never really liked the popularity contest of it, and that kind of still leaves a sour, like just sour memories of that, which there was a lot of. It was fine. Like I didn't get budded or anything. Like I got maybe beaten at once for wearing skinny jeans, but
Yeah,
that's kind of the norm. Like there was no worse than what anyone else had got. So
sure.
yeah, it was all right, I guess.
Can you remember the first record that you bought from a record store?
Yeah, it was Humbug by Arctic Monkeys,
I
our third
mean,
album.
normally this is the one where people drop an absolute clanger and it is something like Steps or something like that. That's pretty cool for a first record.
Pretty sick. I mean, it's only because most of like my dad just used to buy all the records I listened to, so this was the first one I went and bought on my own thing. It was a bit. It's I kind of look back at it as a bit of a pivotal moment in my kind of like a crossroads of or like a I don't know a two-way path of where my music taste would have gone because it was between buying that and Calvin Harris's first album because I'd gotten into that and remember me being stood in HMV with a mate of mine and they were both on like the new releases kind of stand and I looked at him and was like, oh, I really got to like I don't know which ones to get and he was kind of like, look, Arctic Monkeys are a better band. The first two albums are incredible. Like Calvin Harris was good, but like he was like, I prefer Arctic Monkeys, and I was like, I think I prefer Arctic Monkeys as well. So and that's when I got it. And that album still has been like I still listen to it. I think it's the most underrated Arctic Monkeys album they've ever released, and I think the B sides to it, like there's the cover of Red Right Hand on there, and B sides are better than the album, arguably. I think it's their most kind of artistically free. I say that's kind of a hips thing to say because it's I'm not in the band, but yeah, it's the weirdest one, which I think I was quite like. It's like their bossa nova.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Where was all this taking place? Where was growing up?
Worcester, just south of Birmingham, kind of. I think after, I think at one point a few years ago, it was statistically the most average city in the UK, where like it followed the average of every stat. So like every election, um, up until then had matched kind of the vote share. And Worcester had matched the national vote share. Brexit referendum was like spot on to the national result of that. It's like average wage is pretty much the national average wage. It's like it was a nice place to grow up, but there wasn't much. Like there's a reason I moved to Brighton. Like you know because there's just nothing there. Like there's one venue, fantastic venue. I worked there for a bit, but there was you know this I don't know. It's just a very Middle Englandy, literally and figuratively place. There's just very apathetic. You know, the people that stay there are maybe very much stuck in ways, which is fine. If people are happy, that's fine. But it just wasn't for me. I couldn't deal with playing in a blues band for the rest of my life and only playing around Worcestershire and Herefordshire. You know,
Yeah,
like it wasn't my kind of music. Like I enjoyed it at the time, but there was a really good math rock scene just as I kind of got old enough to start going to gigs and working at the Mars Bar, the venue. But that died out within like 2 years of me being there, and then it was just started off with all the blues bands just playing in like your AC/DC covers bands and really bad Led Zeppelin covers bands. And now, because people just don't go to gigs there, they're not interested in music. I mean, you've got Bristol and Birmingham like an hour north and south of it. But yeah, it's just covers bands now, really. But there are a few bands that have come out of there, like bands like Peace and Swim Deep. But yeah, it's just it's a shame. It's a weird one because it's not really a satellite town or a commuter's town. It's just well, it's not even a town; it's a city. But it's just there. A bit like Hereford as well. Like it's just there and it looks nice. You know.
that's the very reason. Like what you just said. There's the reason why I set this show up years ago. Um,
Hmm.
Living in Essex, and the guy that helped set this up for me was a former musician. He's an actor now called Scroobius Pip, and
That's sick.
and and at the time, Pip was, doing a lot in music, and he'd be asked all the time, like, "Do you live in London?" And he's like, "No, no, I live in Essex." And he's like, "You're gonna when you're moving to London?" And he's like, "I'm not. I'm like, I'm 20 minutes just outside on a train. That's fine, and
Yeah,
it's cheaper to live here." And it was just that constant thing of like, if you want to be successful in the creative fields, you've got to go to London, or you've got to go to, as you mentioned, Bristol, or Manchester. And it was like, where does that leave places like Worcester and Essex and Kent and these places that are, these sort of on the peripheries of these bigger cities, and maybe starved of scenes. And so that was kind of why I set it up, because I wanted to sort of scratch the surface and find out what was going on in these other towns, and how,
yeah,
influential them places were. And did you feel the desire that to do what you wanted to do, you'd have to move somewhere where there was more like-minded people?
yeah. And okay, all of my creative friends, whether they wanted to be musicians or like work in TV or work the arts, whatever, they've kind of all had to move out.
Mm,
Like they've had to as well. Like there's local radio there. There's all the normal things you get in like a good venue. Like, but I think, I mean, I can't say because I didn't stay there, but I think you maybe hit the ceiling quite soon.
yeah,
Like after the start of your career, almost
it's a
really.
really good
Like,
way of looking at that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Well, look, let's go clubbing. I'm going to ask you for this track to tell me the name of the song that soundtracked your years clubbing.
So I didn't really go clubbing, and the odd times I did, they were always like the underage nights at this god awful nightclub in Worcester. And this is the only one that I didn't think was absolute horseshit. So it's Plan B by End Credits by Plan B.
Yeah. Like, so did you not have that kind of latter years of, when I say clubbing, it can be your local indie club or like a dive bar. I don't necessarily mean like sort of chrome covered rave, in
Yeah,
a
yeah,
in a
fair
high
enough.
street town. Like, it can
I
sort
mean,
of.
we had the Rainbow in Birmingham used to put on a like an indie night, and I went up there a few times with some friends from Worcester, and we kind of stayed out. We stayed over with a friend who'd moved out and was studying in Birmingham. Absolute shithole place. Like every corner, you've got someone like trying to sell pills and MCAT that definitely are not pills and MCAT to you. You know. Um, the one year I didn't go, but the one year I think they went it for a New Year's thing. And you had like the indie night in the back room, a drum and bass one downstairs, and just a general bar. It's a really weird. It's like an old pub where they've converted the cell into another room as well. End of the night, everyone gets kicked out, and a friend of mine supposedly walks out, can bliss you anywhere, and like someone spots a big pool of blood on the side of his shirt that from someone else. Thankfully, not him, but and then police turn up. There's someone's called the police because there's a knife around or something like that. So yeah, it's kind of that's what Digbeth. I don't know if it's still like that, but it was definitely like that then. It was
Hare
very
and
rough.
Hounds is in
Like,
Digbeth, isn't it?
no, Hare and Hounds is in King's Heath.
King's
So
Heath. Yeah, of
yeah,
course.
it's like 20 minutes south of Birmingham.
Yeah. Was Digbeth like where the custard factory was and stuff like that? Yeah. There was,
Just around the corner from Small Heath, where the Birmingham City Ground is as well.
yeah. Yeah. I run a club night. It reopened this venue as the HMV Institute.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I had a
yeah.
club night there. I run a club night for XFM there for quite a few years. And
Yeah.
that wasn't a bad little spot, but I wouldn't have wanted to be walking home on my own around there.
No, that's it. Yeah, like that's I saw Crystal Castles at the Institute. I saw UK subs there as well, actually, years ago. Just funny. Me and a friend. That wasn't even my dad. It was me and a friend went to go and see it. Yeah, that was
Good
that was
opportunity to dust off them tartan trousers, mate.
Oh man, they'd long gone by then. Like I'd never actually heard of him, but fucking, he was like, oh, he knew I was into punk, and he liked Warhead and Stranglehold, so we went and watched him. Got there for the first band. I think we were 17, 16, 17. He was like fucking 6'2", so I had to give him cash to buy me beers at the bar because he wouldn't get ID and I would. And you got all these posers walking around with the mohawks, like, and t-shirts that say like "fuck" on them, and like, oh, just fucking. I remember looking and being like, "I'm so glad I grew out of that." Like, and they're all angry and everything. They're. It's not like I was sort of punk as being very like open-minded and kind of you just do what you want to do, and then they were obviously it got put in a box, didn't it? And that was like going into that bubble almost. It was
Absolutely. Oh, fantastic.
yeah.
Well, look, from clubbing, let's go home, and I'm going to take you uh, home for this track because I'm going to ask you to tell me a favourite song from an artist from your home county, please.
It's slim pickings, but the one band that I got into as a young'un, like late teenager was Peace. So this is 1998 by Peace.
Yeah. Oh, great, man.
First album's amazing. Like they're
Yeah.
great. They were a band before. There was a rumor that they never played in Worcester because they got banned from every venue for scrapping or just for being assholes, which I always found quite funny. Like because it
Yeah.
used to, whenever you mention Peace, people are like they're shit. They like oh fucking everyone hates them. Like they got banned from the Mars Bar for fighting and all this kind of stuff. Like that kind of sounds quite funny to be fair. You
It
know,
just fans the
so we kind
flames of interest, doesn't it? It's probably
of, exactly
complete bollocks, but like,
yeah.
yeah,
They must have stirred the pot in like somewhere where nobody really stirs the pot. So I think I respected that a little bit,
yeah.
kind of shook it up a little bit. Yeah,
Love that.
yeah.
For your last track, I'm going to ask you to be a bit of a tastemaker here and tell the listeners of this podcast a track you think they may not know that you would like them to go and listen to.
I changed this one about an hour ago, so apologies. But it's Ideal Living and Loving and Still.
Oh, tell me about that. I don't know that.
They're Brighton band. Been going maybe like a year or two, but I don't know. There are just hints of your Nick Caves and like I don't want to say Black Country New Road, but I will say Black Country New Road. Like the earlier, darker kind of really sinister stuff. Like I don't know. You have to go and listen to it. I won't do it justice. I'll be
Yeah,
honest. Like, but fantastic band. Billy's a great front man. Like they're almost a bit of a super group of like fantastic musicians that have been knocking around Brighton for years and have kind of grown separately to but together at the same time in the same kind of scene. So yeah, they're great. Really, really good.
is it an exciting scene in Brighton at the moment?
Yeah, it's kind of had a bit of resurgence. When I first moved down, you had bands like the band called Gang, who I really liked, and used to get like the Witches had obviously come from here. Um, a few other bands as well that I used to go and see, and then they kind of grew a bit and all started touring, and it kind of leaves a bit of a void. And I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, just before COVID and just afterwards, there seemed to be just a void of bands that were there's always bands down here, but like bands that were doing the guitar thing and well, just it's something interesting, really. And I think maybe Lime Garden were one of the first bands that came through and did it well. Although they probably started at the same time as us, so maybe they're a bit sooner. But yeah, the last year, there's bands like Idle Living, uh, Flip Top Head, another incredible band, really cinematic and like just loads of bits. They all write the kind of songs that kind of I wish I could write.
Yeah,
Really interesting, really clever musically.
yeah,
They're obviously all esteemed musicians, which I've always aspired to be, despite
yeah.
not putting the effort in. But yeah,
I think it's really interesting that like when I've kind of uh when I used to do a lot of these podcasts kind of pre lockdown where I just go and sit in a room with people and have a normal conversation. But now everybody's just got the simplicity of Zoom that you don't have normal conversations anymore. But I used to drive to Brighton quite a lot, and when you'd interview any band from the '90s, one of them is a teacher at BIM. It's so
yeah,
crazy. It's like this crazy graveyard of like Britpop royalty, all just sort of have different roles within BIM. I think it was like I had Justin from
Sleeper,
Elastica. I had
yeah,
someone from Sleeper. I had Martin
yeah.
from Gene,
Hmm.
Jake Shillingford from My Life Story.
He's still
Uh,
there, I think. He was there when I was there.
oh, really?
They're all yeah. Apart from Justine, I wish Justine was there because I love Elastica.
No, it was
But yeah,
Justin.
Justin. Oh
Yeah, like
yeah.
he wasn't at BIM. He was there was another college of music in
There's
Brighton.
another one now. There was only when I came down, there was only BIM. Now there's Water Bear, which is kind of the kind of knocked them off the perch a little bit. I'm not sure what the other
Ah,
one was
right.
before
This was a
but yeah,
tired old building. It's definitely shut now.
yeah,
But that was probably maybe 8, 9 years ago now. No, probably about 8 years ago. Yeah, and Justin was heading up the music stuff over there. And but yeah, I've used to. I've not been for a while, but I used to put that club night I put on in Birmingham. I put on the Haunt.
yeah. It's called Chalk now. Yeah, the
Chalk
Horn.
now,
Yeah.
yeah. My mate Hemron used to run it, and yeah, they had some fantastic club nights in there as well.
Well, that was the first club night I went to where I kind of ever only like forgot fat at home. Like I remember when I first moved down here, I went. It was a Monday night. Fat Papa, that is. It was the night was called. I remember walking in and hearing like hand in glove being played, and I was like, "Fucking hell, this is like I can't. Wow, what? I bet it's dead in here." Walked in and there's people dancing to the Smiths, and then it goes into Level Terrace apart, and I was like, "Fuck me, people are still dancing." And then like from that into the Kinks into Justice, like it was fucking insane. I was like, "This is the best thing ever." Like I loved it. Like that was the first time I was like, "Fuck me, I finally found a night like a nightclub or a club night that
Yeah,
everyone's getting involved with the night. It's not, and there's good tunes, but everyone's inside, not in the smoking area.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely. Do you
fantastic.
know, I ended up on a stag do, and I was way too old to be on the stag do in Brighton, maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah,
And and they're like, look, I went, there's too many of us. We're not going to get in a club. I went, let me speak to my mate and see if we can go to the Hong. And the night I think at the time was called. Is it still 1985? I think it was called that.
yeah, I know the one. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and it was
yeah.
like kind of just a really cool 80s night. And like you say, we sort of walked in there and they were playing good 80s, and then they're throwing the Smiths in there and like early REM and like you say, Joy Division
Sick.
Order. And I was like, oh man, this is the fucking best night I've had in ages. And I'm having the time of my life feeling like I'm 18, and there must have been all of these people thinking, the fuck's that granddad doing over there? But I was having the best fun, mate.
So I grew up with this. I remember going in with my dad. And what's my 21st birthday? My old man came down with the band, and like all the family came down and had loads of mates. We had like a group of about 15 of us. And we all went there after a very, very long day of drinking. And we're being stood in there with my dad, and it was an 80s night on a Saturday. And he was like, I'll be honest, mate, I grew up in the 80s and I don't know any of these songs. Like, I don't recognize them. We were in there for about an hour. I was like, oh, fuck, he's like, I grew up in the 80s, don't know none of these. Like, no talk, no
Oh,
Tears for
love
Fears,
it.
no Depeche Mode. It was just all this it wasn't even like the niche like Grout Zone stuff. It was just stuff that kind of just sounded like it was made in the 80s.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
it
yeah,
was hilarious. Loved it. Yeah, it got to about 2 o'clock in the morning. We left not long after that.
yeah.
But yeah,
Well, if your dad's looking for a night out, I've run an alternative club in Essex for 33 years now, and
sick,
and Depeche Mode were a resident band when they
amazing.
were coming through, and Talker, Mark Hollis was an Essex boy as well, so there's
I didn't
never a
realize.
shortage of Mode or Talk on at my club, mate.
He's fantastic. I mean, those last two Talk albums I
Oh,
kind of discovered in
ridiculous.
the last 12 months, just incredible. Like Laughing
Yeah.
Stock is probably one of my favourites ever, I
Do you
think.
know what?
So
Speaking of Brighton bands, I've been lucky over the years to work with the Maccabees a lot, and and Orlando come to my night, and I was chatting away to him, and him and Hugo were saying like that they just discovered Talk, and I was just like, mate, you're in good hands there.
yeah,
And then they released, was it Given to the What was the third album, I think. And I was like, fuck me, they were listening to Talk. I was like, they've
nice.
literally
Yeah.
just got it's like if Maccabee's done Talk, it's fucking amazing. And it was
Amazing.
like, yeah,
So
they've definitely took all that Talk stuff in. Love it.
it's kind of I think they're kind of those last two albums are a little like I mean they've people talk about them a lot, but it's not many people know about them. Like
Mm.
those last two albums, and it's like the first Mark Hollis album is kind of an extension of Laughing Stock, isn't it? But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, they're kind
massively.
of they're I think people think of Talk and they think of It's My Life and the earlier stuff, but
Mm.
sorry. Um, got single pane sash window, so the sound from the road just comes straight through. So,
But It's My
yeah,
Life is one of the greatest pop records ever made, and it's got one of
that
my
was
favourite
fantastic.
ever bass lines. I think he's
Yeah,
fucking incredible, that song.
the
But
video
yeah,
just epitomizes the '80s as well. Like it feels like you're in the '80s, what like the fucking ostrich running across the salt flats. Like it's so sick. I love it. Yeah,
Well, look, Jack, we've banged on about so much other
right.
music. We should talk about
Yeah.
yours, mate. What's
Oh
going on?
shit. Album's out tomorrow, actually, Friday the 24th. It is second album. Um, Not sure what to say about it really.
I mean, this is your moment, mate. You got 10,000 people listening right now. So, like, big it up, mate.
No, fuck me. You got me on the spot now. I can't do it. I'm not a salesman. I'm not like my dad. I can't sell shit.
All right. Well, look, I'll tell you what then. So, the album's, I mean, by the time this comes out, the album will already be out.
Yeah.
Tour?
So big massive tour starting. We're doing a little in-store tour starting tomorrow. Doing Brighton, Southampton, showing Kingston at Banquet Records and one at Rough Trade East. That's on Sunday. Bristol one's on Monday. And
Whereabouts are you?
then
Brighton.
Brighton we're playing tomorrow. So when the album's out, 24th.
And what venue?
It's a resident. It's just an
Resident,
install,
yeah.
like a little install. So it's a little install tour. And then starting on the 5th or 6th of February, we're away for 6 weeks in Europe for a very long time. So that will be
Wonderful.
amazing. We've got like our first shows in places like Romania and Bucharest, like tail on the end of the UK tour later on, which is yeah, cannot wait to go there. But two shows in Greece at the start of spring and then one in Rome as well. Like
Oh, lovely.
the best thing about being in a band, I mean, I would love to pay the rent. I'd love it to pay the rent, but when you get to go to Rome for free, and it all gets paid for, and I mean, you obviously get paid, the band gets paid, but yeah, you can't complain. And then UK tour is starting at the end of March, starting at the Hug and Pint in Glasgow and ending in at Chalk in Brighton on April the 4th. I can send you the dates.
Fantastic.
I'll give you all the dates if you want them. So,
Wonderful. And Jack, if
yeah.
people want to keep up to speed with tour dates and releases and such, where's the best place to keep up to speed with you?
Instagram, probably. Instagram, Facebook. We've got a website as well. I mean, if you go on Instagram, there's a little link in the bio, which has got everything on there, like tour dates, online store, European store as well, if anyone's not in the UK and wants to buy something, or even abroad for the rest of the world, like Americas and all that as well. So yeah, Instagram, go to the link in the bio and everything's there that you need.
Fantastic. We'll put the link in the show notes so we'll make it nice and easy for people to go and find that. And we'll tag you in the post when this come out. Jack, it's been an absolute joy.
I
Chatting
love
with
this.
you,
This has been, I could go all day, mate. This is ace.
oh, thanks
Yeah.
so much. I'm going to press stop, but don't go anywhere.
No, I won't, don't worry.